Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We're going to make the Georgia boy go last, I guess. But I really appreciate all of y'all being here. And sincerely, Mr. Chairman, appreciate your work and this subcommittee's work on this most important issue. It's very impressive, not only for a member of Congress to put in that much work, but a member of Florida Gator Nation. But nevertheless, thank y'all for being here. One thing I want to talk to you about real quickly, particularly you, Mr. King, is the walk-on situation. I know that y'all just recently, or the NCAA just recently removed the scholarship limits and put in roster limits to allow more flexibility, particularly for schools that are funding non-revenue sports. And this is of concern. If you'll remember back when the University of Georgia, Go Dogs, won the national championship back-to-back, we had a walk-on quarterback. And that's very important. I know a lot of people who walked on and played in college as walk-ons. And I'm just concerned, and I'd like to ask you, Mr. King, if you'd comment on what you think is the impact of this is going to be if we have the availability of walk-on opportunities limited.
Yeah, thank you. That's a really important question, so thank you for raising it. So for those of you who've been following the House settlement, actually for those of you who have not been following it, one of the issues that's addressed in the settlement is it eliminates scholarship limits under NCAA rules. So for example, baseball has had a scholarship limit of 11.7. And it was the only sport that had a roster limit before the settlement, and the roster limit was 34. So the coaches had to spread 11.7 over 34 players. After the settlement, those limits are gone, but each sport now has a roster limit. And I believe baseball would stay at 34, from my recollection. So Georgia can offer 34 full scholarships provide in baseball if it chooses. So where in the past, some of the athletes on the baseball roster would have been walk-ons because they didn't receive scholarship aid, now they'll be able to. And that's true across all sports. So the ability of walk-ons to be a part of the program is still there. It's just they may not be a walk-on anymore. They may be on scholarship. All right. One. Two, let's just focus on football because you mentioned Stetson Bennett.
Football, who, by the way, is from my district and whose parents are pharmacists like me. I just want to make sure I got that in. I'm sorry.
Yeah, good plug in. The roster limit will be 105. Scholarship limit is 85 before. So any school has the ability to go up to 105 scholarships. They also have the ability to have more than 105 athletes in their preseason camp. They just have to reduce the roster to 105 before the first game. Three, as part of the settlement, Judge Wilkin really did not like the fact that that some athletes, primarily walk-ons, were going to lose their roster spot. And so she asked us to address that, and we did. So any athlete who is going to lose their roster spot is given a special status, designated as a designated student athlete, where they don't count. So you'll be able to go to the roster limit and keep any walk-ons or other athletes above that number. And if you have that designated tag, you can transfer anywhere and it goes with you where you don't count.
Okay, so maybe it looks worse than it's actually going to be, is what it sounds like. The rest of it, we got about a minute and a half here left, although I believe my Florida counterpart gave 2 minutes extra. Not that I'm not counting, I'm just saying. Mr. King, another thing, I know that this has been a long hearing, and I couldn't help but hear the question from my colleague on the other side of the aisle about the number of coaches in the SEC who had been fired and how much we're paying. And I just wanted to give you an opportunity if you want to respond to that or anything else that's been said today, because correct me if I'm wrong, but most of that's coming from one school, from Auburn. It is.
You know you can't put me on the spot.
I'm sorry.
So, there have been a number of things that this format does not lend itself well to jump in and say, wait a minute, particularly around the area of medical care for athletes. I'm not in any way denigrating or downplaying any of the instances Mr. Huma talked about, but the way he describes healthcare is just, in college athletics, is completely contrary to what I see on our campuses. He also omitted that, one of I've been coming to DC for over 5 years now, and in the first draft bills, particularly in the Senate, Senator Booker and Senator Blumenthal. Thank them very much for their continued work, as well as Senator Cruz. But those bills included revenue share, and they included guaranteed health care beyond the athlete's career. Well, the autonomy conferences were already doing that. In this 5-year period, now the NCAA is doing it for Division I, II, and III, out-of-pockets covered for 2 years. So it's omitted in that conversation that these things are already happening now. And so I just wanted to make that clear. The new scholarships in-house, we've touched on it. I would love to walk through the House settlement, but I know we don't have time. But the scholarship limits going away it's just not a real sizzle issue. People don't want to talk about it. But the benefit of that change, particularly for the non-revenue sports, is really hard to quantify. And every scholarship that is offered to a male athlete must be matched for a female athlete. So if someone decides to go all in on baseball and add 20-plus scholarships, when they have to do it across the board, and several schools have already come out and said these are higher resource schools, that they're going to do it for every athlete. That is an incredible benefit as part of this settlement. And I would love to talk more about the collective bargaining issues there, but
I'm getting the gavel here, so I'll have to go. But one last thing, go Dogs.